Well, you should know when you score a 97, like everyone wants to recruit you. Like everybody's like, but you can have any job you want. And I'm like, I know, but I really got a good gig right now.
Welcome to the ASVAB Domination Podcast, where we help you crush the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, also known as the ASVAB, in order to achieve your dreams of serving in the United States Armed Forces. I'm your host, Mickey Gamonal, and I'm excited to share my years of experience and expertise in ASVAB preparation with you. In each episode, we'll dive deep into test material, strategies for success, and insights from military veterans and experts. Whether you're a high school student considering military service or a seasoned professional seeking to advance your career, this podcast is your ultimate guide to mastering the ASVAB and achieving your goals. Let's dominate the ASVAB together. All right, welcome back, everybody. My name is Mickey Gamonal. I am your host, and I am excited to be talking to another ASVAB tutor today. I have Natalia Orezzoli on the show. She is the founder and CEO of ASVAB Success. She's got online courses, one-on-one tutoring, and she's been doing this since 2009. So, Natalia, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I was looking at your bio in preparation for this interview, and I saw that you have multiple degrees and you speak a couple different languages. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. So my path to where I am now has not been a straight one. There have been a lot of twists and turns in my path. So I originally got my bachelor's degree in biology, and I was a research scientist for some time. And then I went ahead and I started teaching, and I taught research and I taught science for a bit. And then I went and I got a master's degree, completely left field, nothing to do with science, but it had more to do with administration and, leading companies and things like that. And then here I am. So my degrees, they do help me in an indirect way because they help me to do what I do now, but they're definitely not what you would expect a person in my position to have.
Absolutely, yeah. And then what languages do you speak?
So I speak English and Spanish. So I grew up speaking both languages, and it's just kind of normal to me to speak both.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that people who speak English and Spanish say, I just speak English and Spanish. It always cracks me up. It's like, okay, just
No, I
like
hear
that's the
people say like,
minimum.
"Oh, you speak more than one language." I'm like, yeah, but everyone around me does. So, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of normal. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, no, it's impressive. It's impressive. I speak a little bit of Spanish, but definitely not enough to teach in. And then you have some courses. Before we get into kind of what you do ASVAB wise, I do want to talk a little bit more about how you got into it, right? Because like you said, you do have a bachelor's degree, but I also saw that you took the ASVAB yourself. So
Yeah.
if we focus more on like your ASVAB, your personal ASVAB story, it looks like you got a 97, which is what I got as well.
Nice.
So,
Okay,
you know,
cool.
that's like a cool little coincidence. Yeah. I think Einstein said it. I saw a movie recently where Einstein said coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. So there you go. So I've been waiting for a coincidence to drop that one. Anyway, tell us about how you got your score.
Well, it's a funny story. When I was in college, started kind of like messing around with starting companies. Like I was like, yeah, science is cool and I like it, and research is cool, but I really want to try my hand at starting a business. And I started my first education company when I was, I think, like 21 or something like that. And it was just kind of like it was tutoring and it was classes and things like that. And while I was doing that, I happened to meet an army recruiter here in my area. And he was like, "Oh, so your company, like your people, they tutor, like do they tutor for the ASVAB?" And I promise you, I was like, I have no idea what that is. Like what's the ASVAB? And he was like, "You don't know what the ASVAB is?" So he explains to me, what the ASVAB is. And I had already had experience writing curriculums. And he was like, "Well, because that's what I did with that company, right? Like there was the teaching and all that stuff, but I was already writing curriculums and programs through the company." And so he was like, well, if you take the test, can you write a curriculum for it? And I was like, all right, let's give it a try. So I went and I took the test, and that's when I scored the 97. And I wrote a curriculum specifically for the ASVAB exam. And then I went and I looked at kind of like big names and I was like, what are they teaching? And I kind of was like, okay, well, this does come out on the test, but this doesn't. This does. And I tried to kind of like put together what is more relevant to the test. And that was like, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago. And I've been teaching ASVAB ever since. So
So cool. Very cool. Yeah, I like that. I bumped into an Army recruiter, which is what got my start as well. So
yeah.
yeah. But no, that's great. That's great. So you got a 97. And did you ever humor the idea of joining yourself, or were you
Oh
doing
my
your own
gosh.
thing?
Well, you should know when you score a 97, like everyone wants to recruit you. Like everybody's like, but you can have any job you want. And I'm like, I know, but I really got a good gig right now. So no, thank you. But yeah, I considered it because let me tell you, it sounds really good, but I was like, I already have a thing and I didn't want to let go of my thing. So I did not join.
Nice. But you've been helping people join ever since. So, do you have like a favorite success story that you like to share? I know you've been doing this for a little while, so it might be hard to figure out just one.
Yeah, there's a lots, like I don't want to sound like, oh, there's a bunch, but there's like a lot of stories because I've worked with so many students over the years. I think one of my favorite stories was I was one of my first students that I had. He was, well, I'm sorry, let me clarify. I'm based out of Miami, so a lot of people here don't speak English. So one of the first things that I started learning how to do when I started teaching the ASVAB was to help people who didn't speak English how to pass the test. So then it was like I wrote a curriculum for ASVAB, but then I kind of inadvertently wrote one for Spanish speakers or non-English speakers for the ASVAB. And so there was this guy that I was helping, I think probably like the first year or two that I had started working with ASVAB students. And he was so motivated. He really wanted to be, he really struggled with the language. And I mean, I saw this guy work hard. He got the score, he got in, and it was great. And, I mean, I'm sure this happens to you. A lot of times students work with you and then they join and you don't really talk to them much afterwards, like they move on, which is great. That's what you want, right?
Right. I love that. I just got to interject here because I love that about doing ASVAB is it's not like a subscription forever kind of thing. It really is just get this person what they're looking for and
Mhm.
then they're off to the races. Sorry, go
Right.
on.
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. So then I'm driving through Georgia. This was maybe like 2 years ago. Driving through Georgia, and I like to make a habit of stopping and saying hi to recruiters. If I'm on the road, I go in, hey, what's up? And I say hi to recruiters. So I stop in at this office, an Army office in a small town in Georgia. I don't remember the name of the town. I walk in, and guess who is a recruiter there?
Wow.
It was so cool to run into him, and he was like, "Oh my God," like it was just so great. And just to see how far he had come in so long and like, how much it changed his life to not just join the military, but like score high and join the military. Because like you can join the military with like, whatever score, but when you score high and you join the military, like that is completely different. You get a better career. It just sets you up for success when you go in, and seeing him doing so well got me really excited. So
Yeah, no, I preach that as often as I can. I get students who just want to score that 31, right? Just get their AFQT score that's going to get them qualified to join the military. And yeah, people, especially at 18, they don't think about what a 6-year contract or even a 3-year contract really means. We're talking about when you transition from being a teenager to being in your 20s. Like this is a pivotal moment in your not just career, but your life. It's a starting point of leaving everything and going a direction. And if you're one step above that bottom step, you have a completely different life from that point forward.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
But yeah, so for this guy, that's amazing. That's absolutely cool. Seeing him as a recruiter, and that's got to be that he's on his second contract, right? Because you can't just join and be a recruiter. So it must have been a few years already. Is that right?
I think it was probably, I don't know, 10 years since I had worked with him. So he's been in for probably 10 years.
Wow. And so he's halfway to retirement, right? So like
Yeah.
he's got a pension at 20 years for the rest of his life because of your impact. It's got to be so fulfilling. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I was like, this is such a full circle moment. Like it was really, really cool. And we've had lots of stories where it's like, oh, they score higher. I mean, our average of improved score is like 35 points.
Mhm.
That's what, our students are reporting to us. We keep like record of it, and that's where our average is coming at, which is great. That's exciting. But to me, like hearing, oh, I got this job and this is what I'm doing, and look at like seeing people settled and in a thriving career, that part is super exciting to me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's easy for us to overlook because we both have degrees, right? So we invested in education. It's really easy for us to overlook the autonomy portion of picking what you want to do with your time because we got to pick, right? Like you picked your master's, you picked your bachelor's degree, and you made those decisions, which of course the intention was that it improves your life long term. So many people don't even have that lens of looking out and seeing that there's a choice, right? So many people think military is like a last minute choice, like it's only what for people who are at the bottom rung and can't choose what to do. But you obviously, and I've seen it myself, we've seen people who uh, get a better score and they not only now control that portion of getting that better job, but the feeling of autonomy, right? Moving forward and jumping into a team leader's position, squad leader, platoon sergeant, climbing those ranks, that comes with making that first initial choice. So I think it's great. I think it's a great story, and I think it's awesome that you're doing it.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. So let's get into kind of what you have available. So I saw that you have one-on-one tutoring. Is it just you, or do you have other tutors that work with you as well? Or is anybody who tutors with you?
So it's a team of us. There's 5 instructors that we all kind of share the load just because we have a lot more students now than when I first started. We do some one-on-one sessions, but most of what we do are the group classes because that's where it's obviously a lower price point, and that's honestly where most of our students come through from.
Yeah, no, and I really am a fan of the group model. I did that for about a year when I went to Bullock, and I had a couple tutors that were working with me, and they would cover their own individual weeks. The benefit of group sessions that I've seen, and you let me know if I'm missing anything. The benefit of group sessions is people can kind of bounce ideas off of each other. They develop a network and that accountability, and they kind of grow together, right? So like if you have a student who doesn't understand fractions, right? They don't get that 1/2 is different than 2/1.
Mhm.
Me trying to communicate that to a student is completely different than two students communicating that to each other. So that's probably my favorite thing about group sessions.
Yeah, it definitely like it pumps people up to be in a group with other people that are working towards the same goal. So what I love about the group, obviously, it's that there's a sense of community. People are pumped to work with other people that are moving towards the same goal as them. People come in, they're like, oh, I got my test tomorrow. They'll come back, I scored this. And then you feel like the wave of excitement in the group, like, oh, they made it. I'm next, like that excitement builds on each other. And then there's also what you're saying about a lot of times, and this is the thing, a lot of times you have people, everybody learns different ways, right?
Mhm.
So, like, let's say I'm explaining a concept, and this happened to me a couple weeks ago. Let's say I'm explaining a concept and I have one way of explaining it, okay? But maybe that way of explaining it connected with one person in the group. And then I still have no idea if the other people are like connected with me, like if they're understanding what I'm saying. So there's always, thank God, that one brave person that says, I don't get it.
Mm.
And that person is speaking up for the rest of the group, and the rest of the group, sometimes people are like embarrassed to admit it or, whatever. And so that forces me to say, okay, well, let's look at it another way. And so I explain it again, but in another way. And this happened to me, like I said, a couple weeks ago, where I was like, wow, I think I had to explain it 2 or 3 times. And it was great because, I mean, maybe someone else would get frustrated, but I was like, this is great because now you hear all these different ways of thinking about this same concept. And we kept going until everybody was on the same page. And when everyone was on the same page, everybody was like, oh, well, that, I'm like, there we go. If that would have been a one-on-one session or somebody studying by themselves on YouTube or with a book, it would not have gone down the same way. Like they might not have grasped it, they might have moved on, they might not have been brave enough, or they didn't want to tell me that they didn't get it, or they thought, oh, I get it enough. But it really hadn't clicked yet. And I think that's one of the cool things about the group setting.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be hard one-on-one because you want to move on to the next question. And as instructors, we know all the answers. We've seen these questions and we know the pitfalls, right? Like we know why B as a wrong answer is written the way that it's written because they want you to make X mistake. And so it's really easy to just kind of see through the matrix. So it's great when you have that group environment for sure.
Absolutely. Something else that honestly was really important to me, and I will be honest about it, it was something else that was really important to me is that when I first started ASVAB, I did it as a one-on-one tutor. And I started meeting the kind of people that needed help on the ASVAB. You said it earlier, not everybody that goes to the military goes as a last resort, but most of the people that struggle to score high on the ASVAB, they usually struggle to pay for ASVAB tutoring. They usually come from maybe an underserved community. Not everybody, I'm not saying everyone does, but when I started meeting the kind of people that were in these situations, a lot of them were telling me, like, I'm really struggling to pay for this, but I have to make these sacrifices. And for me, it was like, I want to find a model that will make this price point accessible for more people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want it to be, obviously, if you don't pay for something, you take it for granted, unfortunately. But if it's something that's accessible, I still made the sacrifice, but I still want something that's high quality that's going to help me. So our group program, the model that we have allows us to keep a reasonable price point and make the high quality tutoring available to as many people as possible. And we're always looking for ways to improve and give the highest quality we can at that price, because to me, it's super important for things to be accessible for everyone.
Yeah, no, I think that's key. And I love that when you're talking about free, right? It's so hard because so many people see free as worthless. If it's something free, it's not worth anything. Because I've done free sessions, and I'm sure with as long as you've been in business, you've done free sessions before too. And you get people who just don't show up. You get people who show up and like will waste their time, right? Like just like intentionally because they struggle with the curriculum and everything like that. So I can see the value in providing something that has that price point that works for everyone. Are you comfortable, and you don't have to, are you comfortable sharing what you charge for these?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's all over the internet. So our program is $68 one-time payment, and they get access to the group program for 6 months. So they get the online course, which is kind of like an interactive workbook, and then they also get to come up to 4 group classes a week, each week, and they have access for 6 months.
Nice. I love that. I love that. And that's huge, right? I mean, $68 is not a ton of money. And I tell this, my prices are higher for sure. I charge a little bit more, but I tell my students all the time, like, when you go to basic training, right? Like I understand that you may be up against a wall right now, but when you go to basic training and your food is paid for and you're getting, because like the bonuses are pretty substantial, right? I understand like right now, I think it's up to 50,000 for Navy and maybe 40,000 for Army. That's huge. That's like life-changing money specifically for people who struggle. And I think it's great that you articulated it really well. Students who students who can get that 97 right off the jump, they have a lot of choices. But students who don't get that 97 right off the jump, 9 times out of 10, this is the only career other than whatever's hiring outside their door. And so I think it's great. I think it's great that you have that point for them.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, cool. No, and then so for one-on-one, how does that work exactly?
So it's also via Zoom, like we do everything remotely, and that's just kind of like they pay per class. Obviously, it's much more expensive, but it's just one of those options that some people like to have. It's not our most popular product. Our most popular product is definitely the course.
Nice. And what is the class size for your groups typically, if you don't mind?
It depends. It depends. Right now, I think we have anywhere between 7 to 10 per small group.
Okay.
So like people come into the group, it's obviously a larger group when they log in, and then we break out into breakout rooms. So even though it's a large group of people, they still get a little more personalized instruction in the breakout rooms. And they'll have anywhere between 7 to 10. If it's like a busier time of year or whatever, then maybe there'll be 10 to 12, people in the class.
Nice. Awesome. No, that's great. I think it's great that you have something kind of for everybody. So my next question is, which branch are most of your people going for, or is it just up in the air?
I don't usually ask. I don't ask. And I tell my instructors that's like part of everyone's training. Like we don't talk about branches. Like we
Uh-huh.
don't talk about branches. We're completely neutral. You can join whatever branch you want. This score works for whatever branch you want to get into, because I'm not trying to take away one recruiter and send them to another. And we respect recruiters and the hard work they put into recruiting people into their branch and all that. So we never ask. We ask them once they've like passed and they've signed, and then we're like, where are you going? And then they tell us that, but we don't like to ask.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean there's going to be buyer's remorse, right? If you have two people who scored different amounts and one person's getting X bonus from Y branch and the other person's getting something different, you're gonna have people who can get pretty upset pretty quick. So I could see that for sure being kind of a cautionary thing.
I've had a recruiter complain to me. He was like, yeah, we gave them this program, and then like they get like picked up by blah 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 branch. And I'm like, oops. I was like, we do not talk about branches in class. Like you're here to learn, so we're gonna make sure that all the time we have is for learning, and that's it. So
Nice.
yeah.
I like that. I mean, I'm a no nonsense math teacher. I think it's like you have a technical field, right? So you kind of come from that mentality of like, let's focus on the science, let's focus on the curriculum, the
Yeah.
substance of what we're doing here. But yeah, it's so hard. I mean, because I joined the Army National Guard, so I of course have a favorite. So it's
Hey,
tough.
thank you for your service.
Hey, it's a privilege to serve, and I really enjoy it. So, but no, that's great. I think that's great that you guys don't go too deep into branches. You don't have any rivalries or anything like that.
So, and we actually, because sometimes we'll have recruiters come in and talk to them. So like every couple of months, we'll have a recruiter come in and answer questions. And even then we're careful to cycle the branches so that they're not hearing too much from just one branch. Like they're hearing from all the branches. Cause yeah, I like I like I said, I've been doing this a long time, so I know a lot of military recruiters, and I'm like, I'm not going to jeopardize my relationships with military recruiters over this. So yeah.
For sure. No, I would feel so horrible just thinking of the recruiters that I've worked with if I were to change, any of their plans. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've sworn in because I'm in the guard myself. I get to go swear them in once in a while, which is
Oh,
pretty
that's
great.
so cool.
Yeah, not to brag, but I do love it. So it's a good time.
That's so
But yeah, no. So what else? What other things? Like, let's say there's a student out there. I think this is the majority of my listeners are people who want to pass, but haven't considered instruction or anything like that. Where would you recommend that they start? What do you think they should do?
cool. It really depends. And sometimes I have people call me and they're like, well, what do you think I should do? I'm like, man, you know yourself better than I know you. I just met you right now in this conversation. But I'm always wary about that, but it really depends on the person. Like, and I think maybe it's because I have that scientist background, but I always tell people like, try this. And if it doesn't work for you, then like admit to yourself it's not working and then find something that will work, like keep going until you find something that works. So like there's some people that really thrive studying on their own. Awesome. Like if you figured out that you can do that and that works for you and you have the discipline to do it, fantastic. Like do your thing. If you try studying on your own and you're realizing I lack the discipline to do this, or I'm not consistent, I'm not studying consistently enough, well, then maybe you can consider doing something where it's instructional. Personally, I like, and I'll give you an example. I like going to the gym, but I am not, if I go to the gym by myself, like, oh, I'm going to go to LA Fitness today and I'm going to do a workout, I will not, like, I will stop once I'm tired. Like, I will not push myself, and I
Right.
think this about myself. So I don't go to the gym by myself. I know that I have to go to a class. Like I have to go somewhere where there's some guy yelling at me and telling me to do more push-ups, because if I don't go, then I won't get a real workout in.
Mhm.
So that's what I've realized about myself personally. I think it's the same thing with studying. If I know that, I see people at the gym and they have a notebook and they have a plan and they know what like muscle groups are going to work today. And I'm like, wow, but that's not,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, that's not me. And I have to like be honest with myself about that. So it's like, okay, I think studying is the same thing. If you are like, you have a plan, you have the book, you have the things, and like you read it and it makes sense to you and you're there on a consistent basis. Wow, like that's amazing. Like I'm super inspired by you. But if you're not like that, then it's okay to admit it to yourself and go find what's going to work for you.
Mhm.
That's my opinion on that.
Nice. I love it. Okay, so if you're out there listening and you're not sure what to do ASVAB wise, meditate. Like be true to yourself. Think about what you've done. And yeah, by the time they call you or me, they've been trying, right? 9 times out of 10, that's the thing, right? They've been
They had to wait
working.
the 6 months, like yeah, and it's like you've been experimenting. It's fine. You figured out what doesn't work. Now let's try something else. Like let's do something else. It's fine.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, the 6 months that she's referring is after they fail 3 times, it's a 6 month wait. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And
Is it 2 to 3?
I don't know, it might be two. I think it's three, but I'm not
I think
sure.
the first time it might be 3. You're
Okay.
probably, yeah.
I,
I just
I,
misinformed.
Cool. No worries. It's a podcast. Do your own research, folks. But I think it's because of the pie cat. Sometimes with a pie cat, it might count and it might not. So, but yeah, no. So yeah, if they're on that 6 month wait, and that's kind of my favorite thing. I mean, it's not great to be like to beat somebody up and be like, hey, now you're waiting 6 months. Can't you see that this isn't working? Like, that's not who I am. That's not how teachers really roll anyway. But there is something to be said for knowing yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody really is going to have your back better than you can. So if you're not looking out for yourself, try your best to find a way that you can. So I like that. I like that mentality.
Yeah. And actually, if I can give one more piece of advice about that, I always tell people, no matter what, like if you buy the course or not, it's cool, man. Like just practice. The most important thing to do is practice. And I get people that come and they tell me, oh, I read the book. And I'm like, what do you mean you read the book? Like, you can't read a prep book. Like, you have to practice what's in the prep book. It's not watch a video on YouTube and like, I got it and I did it once and then that's it. Like, when that one question comes up on the ASVAB, I'm going to remember how to do it. It has to become like muscle memory. And that's what practice does. Practice makes these concepts muscle memory too. It makes multiplying and dividing muscle memory, adding and subtracting muscle memory. And it's actually a concept that's used in the military. Like in the military, they drill things into you until it becomes muscle memory to do things. So you might as well start learning how to do it now. You might as well start building that discipline now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like, and that's what I say the same thing, just with a little different flavor is a test is not designed to not test you, you know, like it's checking to see, do you know how to do this thing under this constraint and under that constraint? Specifically, if it's a responsive test that adapts to your level, it's going to check, do you actually know what you're talking about? And so I think that's really great. I think a lot of people, like, if you look at a Kaplan book, right? This is like a 600-page monster with flashcards and everything in it, and they'll turn around and say, "Oh, I read it." And you can believe it. You know, I believe people will sit there and read it. If you've spent 6 months trying to get past, like, of course, you'll read it. But yeah, did you practice? Do you understand? Do you have the answer, not just to the questions, but to the concepts, right, of what it's trying to ask? So practice, practice, practice. Even whether you have a tutor, whether you don't have a tutor, if you're doing an online course, if you have the book, it's all going to be about the practice. So I think that's a great message. Awesome. So I'm about to wrap up. Do you have any last question or any last things that you wanted to share at all?
Actually, I don't know if you have listeners who are English is their second language. Can I address that?
Yes, please go for it.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so you mentioned earlier, one of the things that we do is we teach in English and in Spanish as well. And so and over the years, we've had students that are Spanish speakers and they're learning to understand, read, and whatever in English. But we've also had students that are other language speakers, from Philippines, Russia. Yeah, I think she was Russian. Just like a lot of different countries, and we've had them come to our program. And I just want to kind of give advice to that group of people because I'm like, here, what do you need? Let's help you.
Right. You feel
Right, like,
you feel for people who come from a
right,
different
like,
country.
you can do this, right? I would say that the most important thing when you are learning English or English is not your first language is finding keywords, because a lot of times people come from other countries, they may remember a lot of math concepts, and that might not be the problem. The problem might be the translation. So a lot of times those students will do really well in the mathematics knowledge section because it's not as many word problems, but really bomb the rest of it because it's so much more words, right?
Mhm.
So I always tell students that what they want to look for are keywords. So the keywords, you can translate them to your own language or whatever it is, but start looking at associating, okay, this word means this concept. So I know that this is a formula I'm going to use in this scenario. Or this word means this concept. So I know I'm going to use this formula in this scenario. Those kinds of things are always really helpful. And it's kind of like one of the things we focus on when we teach students that English is their second language.
Nice. I love that. Yeah. I love helping people who have come from a different country to score better on this, because oftentimes they already see a wealth of opportunity ahead of them. And so it's like a second level unlock when you're working with people who are ESL or have English as a second language, for sure. So that's great. Great advice using those keywords. Absolutely. Awesome. All right. So if anybody wanted to look into working with ASVAB Success, where can they go?
They can check us out at asvabsuccess.net, or you can find us at ASVAB Success on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. And we're also on YouTube if they want to check out some of our free lessons, ASVAB Success channel.
Yeah, ASVAB Success on YouTube. Awesome. And their Instagram is great, guys. Definitely check it out. They post really solid questions that I love to see. I love looking at the questions because, like you said, it's all about the practice. So definitely check them out, ASVAB Success. Natalia, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Of course. Thank you.
Remember to be kind to yourself and treat yourself as a learner. Are you considering a career in the military but feeling overwhelmed by the ASVAB exam? Look no further than GamonalTutors.com for the best ASVAB prep courses. Our courses are designed by experienced instructors to help you master the best sections of the ASVAB exam, including mathematics, English, and general science. We use proven teaching methods and provide extensive practice materials to ensure that you are fully prepared on test day. With GamonalTutors.com, you'll have access to comprehensive study guides, personalized tutoring sessions, and online practice exams. Our courses are available on demand, so you can learn at your own pace and on your own schedule. Don't let the ASVAB exam hold you back from achieving your career goals. Sign up for GamonalTutors.com ASVAB prep courses today and take the first step towards a successful military career.